All right, so let's refresh our memory on what the parts of the equation are. And it's the same for sine and cosine. It's y equals a, either cosine or sine. So we'll start with sine. Bx, I'm going to do theta, or theta, plus c, end parenthesis, plus d on the end. And all of those little numbers are involved, or letters rather, are involved in finding the pieces of information that we need. It's the same for cosine. Cosine is the one that we're going to be doing first. Y equals a cosine b theta plus c plus d. So what we want to do is take this information and put it all together. What does the a part of it give us? The amplitude. And the amplitude part is pretty straightforward, right? The amplitude is the absolute value of a. So in front, my equation could be y equals positive 3 cosine something, or my equation could be negative 3 cosine something. Oops, I wrote that down there so you couldn't see it. Both of these things would give us an amplitude of 3. Do you need to write both of them? No. If they ask for write a cosine equation that could work for this, we only need to write one. I'm just showing you that both could work. Okay? What does the b part give us? It helps us find the period, doesn't it? It doesn't straight up give us the period. That b is not what the period is. But if I know the period is 2 pi, remember, 2 pi over b will give me that period that I use for the graph. So 2 pi over b, in this case, is equal to 2 pi. So I have to just do a little bit of algebra here. The algebra isn't too terrible. I want to solve for b, so I can just flip-flop these two things. We've done that before. I multiply the b and then divide out. So 2 pi over 2 pi will give me b. What's b? 1. Great. So if I'm working through this equation right now, I have 1 theta. I have to figure out the rest in a little bit. And I have a vertical shift on the end. So what goes inside? What's this c part all about? Where does that whole thing come into play? It gives us the phase shift. Do I even have a phase shift in this graph? No. Do I need to worry about anything else in here? No. So I could stop there. It's not, I could put it as plus 0 because there is no phase shift in there. And that would be the same if I was doing the negative one. It would be 1 theta plus 0. Do I even need the 1 there? No. Okay, so then the last thing I have to deal with is this vertical shift. And where does the vertical shift come to play in here? And this one's the most straightforward letter of them all. Exactly what the vertical shift is exactly what D is. When it comes to the amplitude, which is pretty straightforward itself, remember it's the absolute value. When it comes to the period, I have to mess with the 2 pi over b part of it. When it comes to the phase shift, I have to figure out some other stuff inside of there. But right here, I can just add that one to the end to get my vertical shift, and it could be for either one of those. So when I write this answer in a more condensed form, the cosine equation that could represent this graph is y equals 3 cosine theta plus 1. Or it could be y equals negative 3 cosine theta plus 1. Both of those are acceptable answers. Now, I showed you that it could be the plus or the minus, again, because the amplitude is the absolute value of A. From here on out, I'm only going to do the plus. Are you guys comfortable with that instead of going through and doing two equations? Okay, so we'll just do the positive. And you can do the same. You can do the positive, or if you're feeling fancy, go ahead. If you want to give negative a chance, go ahead, do it. Just stick a negative in front. It doesn't matter. It's all good. Okay, so I believe that's supposed to say 0.5. Can we agree that that's a 0.5? Okay. All right, so I'm going to start setting up my equation. Right now, the easy stuff. Y equals 0.5 cosine something theta plus my vertical shift I can put at the end, plus 1. So I'm jumping in. I have to do now the real work. I've got to find B and I've got to find C. We already figured out how we find B. Remember how this works. 2 pi over B is equal to the period, which is pi. I solved this algebraically by multiplying the B up and then dividing by the pi. Ultimately, I just flip-flop those two, so 2 pi over pi equals B. Are you okay with my fancy math? Does that work? So what's B? Great. I'll stick that guy right up there. Now this is going to be, the next part is going to be the most difficult part. Because what is in here makes my phase shift. And I have to figure out what it is. Remember that when I set this equal to 0, when 2 theta plus C, do that in a different color, when 2 theta, in this case, plus C equals 0, that's when I get a phase shift, or I solve for theta. That's when theta equals pi over 4. So the phase shift happens when theta equals pi over 4. So I'm going to stick that in here and use that to find my C. Are you okay with that? So pi over 4 is going to go in for theta. So 2 times pi over 4 plus C equals 0. Multiply that through. I'm going to solve for C. C is the unknown that I want. So I get pi over 2 plus C equals 0. Subtract the pi over 2. C stands alone as negative pi over 2. So when I go back up to my equation, I would write that as minus pi over 2. Again, this spot here, this guy here, is going to give you the most trouble. That's the part you're going to have to think about the most. And you just work backwards. Think about how we found it and work backwards to figure out what the C is. Okay? Same concept when it comes to the sine as it is for the cosine. So we're going to run through this 2 more times, and then I'm going to let you be on your own. Okay? So here we go. Y equals, I can start right away with the 17 sine, parentheses, something theta, plus, after the parenthesis, I'll add my vertical shift. I don't even have a vertical shift, do I? So I don't need that on the end. I can eliminate that. Now I just have to figure out this stuff inside of here. And so we'll start with the period. Tell me how to set it up. How do I find B? Two pi over B equals 8 pi. Good? Solve. What's B? Remember, the pi's will cancel out, so 1/4. So I can stick that right in front of theta. What's another way we would write this? This part here, 1/4 theta, how else would that look, or could that look? Theta over 4. Do I have to write it as theta over 4? No. You can leave it just as 1/4 theta. Now I've got to do the more difficult part. Remember how it works. 1/4 theta plus c is equal to the phase shift, which is -2 pi. Nope, I'm a liar. Is equal to 0. Why do I lie? Why do I do that? I don't know. I have a problem. Is equal to 0. But what is this -2 pi part of this? That's what we get when we solve for theta. So this is my theta. That's the angle that that phase shift happens at. So I'll plug that in. So 1/4 times -2 pi plus c equals 0. Now I have to do my algebra. What's this, 1/4 times -2 pi? What is it? Negative pi over 2, great, plus c equals 0. How do I solve for c? Yeah, I'm not afraid of this being a number, right? It's not a pretty number. It's not a real like a number that we're used to looking at, but it is a number. So I can just solve with that. So c equals pi over 2. And so that goes back up here. Turned out to be positive, so I go plus pi over 2. Remember, in the last one, we actually ended up having the same angle in there. That doesn't matter, but remember it was minus because we came up with a negative c. In this case, it's plus because we came up with a positive c. All right, one left. Where do I start? What's the startingest, easiest part to do? Y equals 4 sine something theta. Give it some room to work because I have got a period different than 2 pi and a phase shift. What do I do with this guy? Stick it at the end. It's negative, so I minus 3. So I've got a good start to this going on. That's the basics of my equation. Now I need to go ahead and find B and C. We'll start with B. How do I find B? 2 pi over B equals pi over 2. Wait a second. This one's a little bit different. Can I just flip-flop these still? I can. Yeah, it's not. It just looks ugly. I could also cross-multiply. You guys remember doing that from back in the day? But I like to keep consistent, so I'm just going to flip-flop. This is 2 pi over 2 equals B. I just flip-flop those two. Again, that's a pretty ugly-looking thing, but it's okay. come the mouse sometimes like disappears? Like you can't see it anywhere on the computer. There we go. Put that here. Okay. How do I solve this though? Ugh. Well, how many times 1/2 fits into 2? And what happens with the pies? They cancel each other out. What I think about this is 2 pi divided by pi over 2. Or remember how fractions work. You don't divide by fractions, you flip and multiply. So this is like 2 pi times 2 over pi. The pi's cancel out. What do I end up with? 4. So my b equals 4 when I do my final solving. Stick that right back in here, and now I can use that to find c. Oops, I stuck that right back in here. So remember how that works. Bless you. 4 theta plus c equals 0 when theta is what? Pi over 6. So I do 4 times pi over 6. Remember, this is the phase shift. That's that phase shift that was given. Pi over 6 was the phase shift. That's where this pi over 6 comes from. Plus c equals 0. Multiply this together. What do we get? Perfect. Subtract the 2 pi over 3 from both sides. And I end up with a c equal to negative 2 pi over 3. Goes back up in here, minus 2 pi over 3. Good? Okay. So, your job is to finish up your homework, make sure that you have that ready and done by tomorrow, and then work on your review. I will post the answers to review while you guys are working, but I am going to add one additional problem to your homework. It's not on there. It's not on the on your homework pack, but you can fit it on the bottom or squeeze it on the side, and it's just with what we worked on today. I'm going to add it to the bottom of this paper so you can add it to your homework. This is your one assignment for this. All right? Let's write which one do you want? Cosine or sine? Cosine, great. A cosine equation for blah, blah, blah. You know what the directions are. A graph that has the following information. It's got an amplitude. Somebody give me a number for a good amplitude. 2. Super. Let's do a period. Give me something with pi.
4 pi.
Great. 4 pi. I want a phase shift. Can anybody make up a good phase shift? Pi over 2. Super. I like your creativity. And then I want a vertical shift. Up or down? Let's make it -1. I heard negative first, so we'll go with that. So this is what you need to do. You need to write a cosine equation that has these properties, that the graph would have these properties. I'll leave this up here so that if you don't feel like writing it down, you'll be able to see it. Just add that to the bottom of your homework assignment. Just shove it in the bottom of your homework assignment, and when I collect it, I will check that out, all right? Or when you turn it in.